Welcome, Barbara, Juan, and Nico. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hello.
We are living. Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for the invitation. It will be a pleasure being here.
Good to have you here. We are living in an interesting time for startups. We see records of money invested in the region, and with them come many challenges in terms of management, speed of scale, attraction of talents, and understanding changes in consumer behavior. Well, let's jump into the conversation and get to know these three companies that are driving some of the transformation of tourism in Latin America. Barbara, can we start with you?
Sure.
In 1 minute, can you tell us about Flapper and what you do?
So I'm Barbara, CFO of Flapper. We are a Brazilian startup for private aviation. So we are in the Latin market. We have offices in Chile, Colombia, and now in Mexico. And we suffered a lot during this pandemic times. Nobody traveling, and we get to recover this year. Will be a very great year. And I'm here to share some difficulties that we had in this market. There is a very different market for the common travels. It's a more leisure market, and I'm here available to all the doubts that you have about it.
Very good. Juan Carlos, how do we say naughty 360 or naughty 360?
Naughty 360.
Great, 360. Please tell us briefly about Naughty 360 and your business model.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity and the space. We are boat charter marketplace. We were born in Colombia. However, we offer services in more than approximately 20 countries right now and several international destinations. And it has been a challenge for us since our focus is to be a tool or the door for the boat charter industry to the Latin American users. Okay, a lot of people in Latin America have always dreamed about riding a boat, and we want to close that gap, okay, between the actually the nautical sector and the users in Latin America. Okay, so that's the main reason we existed. And we're here and welcome and glad to connect to everybody.
Very good. And what about Kasai, Nico? What makes Kasai special?
So first of all, Tricia, thank you for the invite, and to the Phocuswright team as well for the invite. What Kasai is building is the next generation of hospitality, specifically for the post-COVID reality. And what I mean by that is, if hospitality 1.0 was hotels and 2.0 was Airbnb, then Kasai is building for 3.0, where we're really building at the intersection of business, leisure, and digital nomads, similar to what Carolina was mentioning before. Our apartments are for both long-term and short-term. Instead of a 10 square meter hotel room, it's 150 square meter apartment with a kitchen and a terrace. We prioritize technology and locality. And to give a sense of scale, we started 2.5 years ago. Since then, we've raised about $53 million of capital, $5 million from our seed round from Moniz Capital and Kasai Ventures, and then $48 million in our Series A from Andrade and Horowitz and Triple Point Capital. We have almost 1,000 apartments across Mexico and Brazil. We've had 90% occupancy for the last 6 months. And really the ambition of Kasai is to become the first global Latin American hospitality brand. As Carolina was saying right before this, hospitality, warmth, food, welcoming, all of that stuff is core to Latin America's DNA, and we want to export that globally.
Good. Let's keep with you, Nico, and talking about what is beyond accommodation. At a recent Phocuswright research, we see that the consumer of hotels and short-term residences are pretty much the same. What are your clients looking for? What is beyond accommodation that makes you and Airbnb and hotels different?
Yeah, what's interesting is that prior to COVID, I would say that our main client base was primarily coming from Airbnbs, meaning people that were already primed to stay in an apartment, Whereas now increasingly we're seeing that we're taking share from hotels. And we know that because our guests reflect the new reality, right? So our guests are ambassadors and diplomats, they're executives, they are people that never would have considered a non-hotel accommodation before. And the reason, as I mentioned, that they're looking for this new kind of accommodation is because the nature of travel is changing, right? It's no longer a one-day business trip. It's now a 2-week business trip. And just like Carolina was saying before this, you're both working in your apartment and also want to go eat at a nearby restaurant. And so we see that as a kind of new nature of travel.
Very good. Juan Carlos, how do you see the behavior of the Latin America consumer? Are there differences from European customers when it comes to travel?
In our industry, for example, yes, because Europeans are professional boaters, we call it, or professional clients in this sector. And what we're trying to do is to actually bring these kind of services that used to be for high-end customers, that have people that have a lot of money, to the middle class, and for $300 a day, you can actually rent a boat for 10 people. Okay, that's what we want to do. We want to democratize the service in Latin America and make them accessible to all. And in the difference between the Europeans in Latin America, people, they evaluate, okay, a lot about prices and about what will be the experience regarding of European travelers, for example. But we have seen we have had an interesting growth rate, okay, after COVID. Okay, we have sold this year what we didn't sell before COVID. So I don't know. In our case, people are in Latin America looking more for experiences outdoors, independent experiences. And boats, for example, give them that independency, So I mean, for us, it has been an awesome journey after COVID in Latam.
Very good. Barbara, talking about high-end clients, as Juan Carlos was saying, your company has been working hard to democratize access to private flights. What does this consumer want? Is there a difference between the old luxury private jets clients and the ones that fly flopper?
Yeah. We noticed that in Brazil and the other countries, people want to fly privately, but didn't have the opportunity. So we are the first company that sells shared flights in private aviation. So the person have the access to buy just one accent to travel. So we are democratizing of that way. The person didn't have to hire the whole aviation, the whole airplane, so he can travel just buying one seat. So this is a different way that we are working here. And in commercial aviation here in Brazil, it's very hard to find flights in the last minute. So we are paying higher prices for that. So our client can pay a very, very fair price to that. So we are giving a lot of the market here because of that. During the pandemic, we did a lot of flights to people from another countries that didn't have access to commercial flights because they are not doing those flights. So we can have access with the authorization of some consuls, ambassadors. So we have to rescue some people from Brazil of another countries, and we do a lot of flights of cargo because the logistics during the pandemic here in Brazil was a very, very bad moment. So we did a lot of travel of cargo too. So during this pandemic, we go ahead through this, doing another kind of business. We're doing aeromedical services. We are doing cargo and rescue of Brazilians in other countries.
Very good, very diverse.
Yes, we have
Very
to
good.
we have to do that. Was the only way because in a month we do a GMV of 2 million, and in the next month in March we do a GMV of 1,000 or 100,000. So we passed for very bad times during the beginning of the pandemic. I almost have a heart attack, but we get through this in a good way.
Very nice, resilient. Juan Carlos, one of the main challenges for startups is usually the execution of the investment thesis. How have you been dealing with the management challenges? I've heard you had an Endeavor program. Tell me a little bit about your management challenges.
Well, I believe that one of the main challenges that we have had managing the business actually, it's convincing the users that this service is not for rich people anymore, and educate the users about that it's pretty easy and cheap to access this kind of services. So we have, besides that, also we have gone through because we're doing an investment, a seed round right now, and it has been, it has been weird because in some countries, for example, investors, they're like, oh, do people usually would like to get into a boat or something, or do people actually do it? And in other countries, and I mean in Latin America, one country to another, it's a complete point of view, because for example in Peru, a lot of people, I mean, there's a huge middle class, and a lot of people actually rent boats and everything, or would like to rent boats and have those kind of experiences. So I mean, manage. Besides that, it has been great. We are a startup. We have up and downs, but I mean, besides those main issues, everything has been awesome.
Nice. Nico, while the money available for investments does not seem to be a problem, finding talented people, mainly in technology, seems to be a challenge for growth. And you recently acquired Rooming and Hue Apartments in Brazil. And has the acquisition of companies been your strategy to accelerate growth? How has this process been?
Yeah, I think for us, Tricia, we are excited to grow in all the ways that we can, and that includes both organic acquisitions and growth, and also inorganic growth. And for us, what we're finding in the market is that there are incredible and talented teams that are focused on building products and portfolios in local geographies. And we're excited to partner with them where we think that their expertise locally makes a ton of sense to add to our team. And so for us, as you say, as we think about portfolio acquisitions and inorganic growth, the number one criterion that we use to evaluate a team really is their talent and culture fit with our team. And so I think that Rumen is a great example where the founders, started a year ago. They have a ton of hustle, and so we're excited to welcome them to our team. And so, as you say, our acquisition strategy is both for portfolio additions and also for talent acquisition.
Nice. And Barbara, how do you take care of the company's culture while you were growing in an accelerated pace?
Yeah, we grow up very fast this year. We received investment from Series A in the beginning of the year. So we have to take care because we have people around the country, people that didn't know each other, and have to keep that the culture more fidel to the beginning until today. So we are just doing some summits, flapper summits, some meetings of our employees in specific cities, and we bring all together to stay. This month we are going back to the office, so we are going twice a week to try to the people know each other, work together to keep the culture uh, as the beginning of the companies. It's very hard. We have some losses during this year, very important losses, and I believe just because we are some losing our strategies and our goals during this year, so we have to bring the people to work together, thinking in different ways to do that. So we are trying to do that summit that during 2 3 days we put all the people from IT team or finance team together to do some job together and to know each other.
Nice. And the same question for the three of you. What would you say to those who want to invest in Latin America? One wise advice.
I think for me, what's exciting about specifically hospitality in Latin America is the confluence of two factors. First is the outsized importance that hospitality, travel, and tourism have to the GDP of Latin America, right? So Mexico is the seventh largest travel economy in the world, and I think travel and tourism comprises 10% of GDP, right? So from a macro perspective, it's an incredibly important sector in the region specifically. And then the second is that hospitality tech specifically is enormously underpenetrated in the region versus other regions in the world. And so you have, again, the confluence of a lot of really exciting macro data points, and yet a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs and I think investors that realize the importance of travel and tourism, apart from what has happened over the last 2 years, realizes the enormous addressable market that the industry has.
Very good. Juan Carlos, Barbara?
Yeah. So I think that this moment it's very interesting investing in Latin America. The first point is in a finance view is that it's cheap invest here. So we saw some VC funds from Europe or from United States. They can do great business here because of the exchange. So we are seeing a lot of VCs that are searching for startups in Latin America because they can do great jobs here, great business. Because our in Brazil specifically, our exchange is terrible. We are passing for those days, so it's a great moment to search for international investments in dollar, euros, pounds. So we are looking for that international market of that way.
Yeah, in our industry, I mean, it's in Latin America, it's an 8 billion US dollars in revenue per year. So and nobody's actually doing it, or nobody's actually putting focus, to this kind of market before us. Okay, so that's what we're selling to the VCs in the US pretty much, mostly. That we have big competition in the US and in Europe, but Latin America from Mexico to Argentina, it's abandoned as of right now, as of right now. So we have a pretty good opportunity to actually be the leader in the region and then step up and fight with the top players globally in the
And
future.
if I can add one thing to Barbara's point, which is a great point, is that I think a trend that's true across the industry is that you have revenue, you have top line that's dollarized, right? So a lot of hotels, a lot of private aviation set their rates in dollars, and then you have local currency OpEx, right? And so especially vis-a-vis competitors in more developed markets, a lot of the new emerging players in Latin America can take advantage of an interesting margin because of exactly that FX profile, which is very exciting.
Very good. And what about travel subscription? How does it work to your businesses? Are you thinking of it, or it's not for you? Who goes first?
For us, as I mentioned previously, the way that people are living, traveling, and working is totally different from as recently as 18 months ago. And part of that is that there's no fixed home in many cases, right? A lot of my friends from San Francisco or from New York are abandoning their $5,000 a month rent and are just wanting to hop around. And so at Kasai, we've experimented with less a subscription, but more a fixed discount if you want to stay with us in Polanco or Roma Norte or Tulum or Itayimbibi. And so we are experimenting with different business models that again reflects the new reality. And part of that experimentation is around subscriptions or a reflection of how people are now living.
Okay.
Here in Flapper, we discussed a long time ago about a membership program. So our clients could pay value monthly and have access to all our options of flights. But after the pandemic, we are thinking better because we have to give a lot of options to the client because a very expensive membership is something like 40,000 reais per month. So we have to travel to use that. It's very hard in those times that I don't know if you can travel to another countries. We are seeing the different times here in Europe. We are seeing some countries having the new Omicron, the new variation of COVID. So we are thinking to put that project to the next years, not to use right now until we have to give the options of routes of flights to our clients. Membership will not make sense for them because it's a very expensive program.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yes, in our business, for example, because of this transactional, business model, what we're doing is to offer people, for example, to increase the, increase the times that a buyer actually purchase from us. Is we have alliance with Life Miles, for example, so the people that actually rent a boat can receive miles, okay, for every time that they use the service. And we have done some commercial alliances as well, like MasterCard, for example. So we have receiving a lot of clients from our MasterCard card holders from Colombia and Mexico. So that's helped us. That has helped us a lot to actually get so the clients can get to know us, right? So that's why.
Good strategy. And if you have to pick a trend for 2022, which is it?
I believe the economy is gonna recover. It's gonna be a better year. We're not saying. I mean, we're receiving a mixed signals. Now that this new COVID, but I think that the world is ready for to take the to step up and recover for next year.
I think that the trend for Flappers area, I think that the thing's gonna be to normal. So we are hoping to things gonna be to normal to go back the business travels, the travels for the end of the year. So in December and January, you are expecting the months of higher revenues of Flapper because everyone wants the desire to get the Christmas together with the family and to go to a different place to New Year. So we are expecting that the things go to normal in the next year, for we have more business travels, more people traveling to know different places. So at this beginning, I'm expecting so the things going to be normal will be very great for me. So
whatever normal is.
normal.
Very good, Nico.
And I'm going to plagiarize from Carolina's. Her presentation was excellent. But I think that in 2022 we're going to see continued blurred lines between business and leisure travel, and that's exactly what we're building at the intersection of like I started with. So to give concrete examples, prior to COVID, it was very clear when you were on a business trip, your employer was paying, you were traveling Monday through Thursday, McKinsey kind of travel. And it was very clear what was leisure. You're traveling with your family, you're paying out of pocket. But now if you are a Twitter engineer and you're leaving the Bay Area and you're moving to Tulum for a month, you're paying out of pocket, but you're working inside your apartment. It's not clear if that's business or leisure, right? You have the demands of a business traveler because you're working inside your apartment and need that kind of connectivity, but you're also in Tulum and you're going to the beach after work and you're looking for the best restaurants. And I think that, again, COVID has accelerated that, but I think that is a trend that is durable, it's permanent, it's not going to change. And exactly as Carolina mentioned, the hospitality concepts that are building for this new reality are the ones that are going to succeed in the future because it's not going away.
Very good, I believe so. Let's do a quick close to our panel. We are at the end, and I will say a word and you will answer if the subject is buzz or business impact. Can we start?
Sure.
One at a time. Remote work. Who goes first? Buzz or business impact?
For me, business impact.
Yes.
ESG.
Business.
I think you're on mute, Barbara.
Business impact.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Business impact. Very good. National travel.
In Brazil, business impact. Right?
I would say that, but in Brazil, it's a business impact. I don't know if in all of them.
In Colombia, so. I mean, people, a lot of people are traveling also abroad. So
a lot of people in Flapper travel to Cartagena in Colombia. That's the most favorite.
And to finish, metaverso.
I don't know. For me, it's more buzz, and right now it's more buzz, but we never know.
I differ from Carolina in that one. I believe that people will spend more money in the metaverse than actually in the real world in the next 10 years.
Let's all see.
Touch is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Very good. Thank you, Barbara, Juan, and Nico, for sharing your thoughts with us today. And I hope we meet you in person next year.
Not the metaverse.
Sure, I hope so.
Thanks.
Very good.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.